well, but what does everybody think about that? Does 5 to 1 sound too high? Too low?
That's what I just think.
So 5 to 1 seems like a good ratio that'll work. Anybody else think 5 is too much, too high? Well, 1 too hard to get to, or 2 maybe counterproductive?
Seems like when the kids are learning the sport, there's going to be a lot of errors going on. It seems like you're going to have to do a lot of correcting, and seems like it might be tough to get to 5 to 1.
Okay. So, and again, as a parent, you'll let the coach do the correcting around the learning, but right, you might have to correct them about being on time, or bringing their equipment, or showing the right attitude, or things that you as a parent want to make sure they develop. So yeah, it may be harder to get to. I just want to point out here that we can get too high with this too. I was asking if everybody thought this was too high, and nobody said it was, but 100 to 1 would be too high. 10 to 1 might be too high, and again, depending on the kid's age. Because if we do it too often, it starts to sound false. If we're always telling our child, hey, good job, good job, good job, good job, again, they don't understand perhaps why we're saying good job, but it also may seem like that's all we do, and they can't expect honesty from us. So we have to be careful not to overdo it. But most of the research falls around 5 to 1. There's some research by a guy named John Gottman. He's been on Oprah, if you ever watch Oprah. He's known as the Love Doctor, because he can look at a married couple, most of his research has been with married couples, and tell you with 94% accuracy whether they're going to divorce in the next year. And what is he looking at? He's looking at this ratio. How do they treat each other? Are they positive, or are they more negative than positive to each other? And he finds, he's actually want to coin this term magic ratio, he finds that right around 5 to 1 is where marriages work best. There's a couple called the Kirkharts that did research in schools, and there's a lot of research about this in schools, but they in particular found that when it fell to 2 to 1, so back to yours, Mike, kids got despondent. They felt the teachers were against them. And why is that? Why do you think that might be that? Even though 2 positives to a negative, why do you think that might not be enough?
They take negatives much more personally.
Yeah, we remember the negatives, they stick. The positives kind of wash over us, but we need to be more positive to balance that out. One of the pieces of research that I find most compelling around sports is that some University of Washington researchers went and followed John Wooden around during his last season. And they went to every practice. And he won a national championship that year. And they broke it down into positive interactions and corrections. And he got this ratio almost exactly. 83% positives, interactions, 17% corrections or criticisms. And so there's some support for this being a good ratio. How do we get there? How do we make sure we do that? Because it may be hard. You know, as Ruben pointed out, kids may be making some mistakes. It may be hard to say 5 good things. You know, if I want to go up and give Gerardo a criticism, do I have to first say, hey, I like your shirt and thanks for paying attention, and I noticed that you got here on time and you participated, but by the way. No, I mean that would be too much. It's about the overall atmosphere that we're building with our child around sports. So one of the things we want to look at is how do we do the positives, and then when we do have to criticize, how do we do that? So what are some ways that we can make sure that we hit this 5 to 1 ratio with our kids? What are some things that you found as parents that fill your kids' tanks, that keep them going?
Clapping.
Clapping. Just clapping. Okay.
Cheering for you, say, great job.
Great job. So cheering for them during the game. Okay. Other things that have worked well?
My son likes it when I let him make his own choices.
Okay. Yeah. So can you give an example of that?
Which route do you want to take home? He's learning to drive.
Okay.
And I let him choose the route.
Okay. So he feels in control then when he can choose the route. And it goes back to some of the things we were talking about in the elm tree. But it also can be a tank filler at the same time. It's a reward for him learning how to drive and doing the best that he can with it. Yeah, I've got a daughter who's learning to drive too. And so, you know, again, with the non-verbals, I know sometimes I'm in the car and I'm doing one of these until I say, get over, get over. And, you know, at that point, I've probably lost a little credibility with her because she thinks I'm seeing things that are not happening. But how often are our kids at a game and they look up and they see us, and what do they see? We've talked about do they see if they make a mistake in the game?
Grimace.
A grimace, yeah. That same thing. Ooh, oh, that can't be my kid. And so, as we talked about with the mistake ritual, a tag filler can be clapping, doing those nonverbal things. Hey, thumbs up. Hey, great job. After the game, letting them make some choices about what they want to do, and not imposing that conversation on them. Asking open-ended questions that gets information from them. And again, keep your goals in mind. If your goal is, I want my child to have fun in sports this year, after the game, don't ask them, hey, what happened on that play? Ask them, what was the most fun thing for you out there on the field today? What did you have the best time with? And let them tell you what it was about. In your book, on page 32, you'll see we talk about having to criticize. And criticism is almost always draining, but there's ways we can do it that are less draining. And in your book on page 32, you'll see a number of things there that can help you have a hard conversation with your child where criticism doesn't completely drain their time. Sometimes ask permission if you can tell them something. Sometimes ask them what they think they could have done better at. And let them all in. Sort of like Ruben giving a choice to his son about where to drive. And remember the criticism sandwich, where you put the criticism between two pieces of bread that are positives. Hey, I saw you doing this really well. I really like the way you picked up your teammate out there when he was looking down. But you know, you were a little too critical at times too, but I really like the way you bounced back and helped out your team at the end so that they can hear it. Because criticism is important. We have to make sure that our kids can hear it when we give it to them. So I want to do one quick exercise with you, and then we'll move on to the next part.